Welcome back everybody to Chris Bosch Props. We're doing lots of resin printing, trying to print out all the resistors, the aluminum tubing with welds for the Proton pack. It's been keeping me pretty busy, but I'm going to walk you through my process and where I'm at the moment. First thing we got to do, of course, once it's printed is take it off the bed. Try not to make a huge mess. You're going to get a few drops here and there. And then we got to clean this thing with some alcohol and get all that excess resin off. My process is real simple. I just use a little bit of 90% isopropyl alcohol, douse it on the bed. This just helps me get my putty knife underneath to just scrape it right off, and I use my trash can almost like a cushion to protect the resin pieces. Then I just use some paper towels and wipe off the bed. It already has the excess alcohol when I initially poured it. And then put my bed back on. We're going to give these a nice little bath. Take these supports off. So those look really good, guys. So now we need to put these on the little UV kit that I showed you guys in the previous video. These are rather tall. I'm going to put that little paper towel underneath it so that it can drain the resin. And then we're going to put our little makeshift shipping box that actually the UV kit came in. And it just makes it a little taller, and I have these DeWalt cases as kind of like a riser, and we got our UV light, and then you can see with the little solar panels on that UV kit, it's going to start curing. So we'll let that sit on there for like an hour or so, and then we'll come back to it and see how it looks. One detail I 3D modeled was this booster tube weld here. I sell these also for the Spirit pack, but the weld direction is wrong for the type of pack I'm replicating. I'm trying to replicate the Venkman GB2 pack mixed with a little bit of my own flavor in it. So not an exact replica, but I'm going to take a lot from that pack. And the weld direction, you could see it the welds are going south rather than north. And I was able to replicate that there. That is resin printed. We have a lot of our stuff resin printed now. I have the HGA, the crank knob. This crank knob is from the Taco Shell Q pack, and it's just a great model. They killed it on it, so that's probably what I'll be using. We got our vac tube printed out. These are all resin printed. Our PPD here is resin printed. I tried to get an accurate lip like what you see in the movie. I think it was resin filled in the movie. And we replicated that. We have our beam line and filler tube with the welds that I put on, all resin printed. Our resin printed clipboard. This is a FDM printed cap with silk filament, metallic silk filament. Quick question to you elitists out there, because this is something I'm struggling with and I'm not entirely sure. In reference photos, it looks like for the Venkman Ghostbusters 2 Hero Pack that the injector tubes are thinner than what is seen on the Sony Lobby Hero Pack, which looked to me to be thicker. I'm guessing on the Sony Lobby Superhero Pack that the injector tubes are 1.5 inches, whereas on the Venkman Ghostbusters 2 pack, they look like they might be 1 3/8 inches. Now, I'm not entirely sure, so if anybody knows a concrete, factual answer, it would be great to hear from you. I'm leaning more towards 1.5 inches, but in some photos, they look like 1 3/8 inches, so I don't really know. Again, I think this is a detail that only I would notice and nobody else, but it would be good to know exactly what the consensus is on these injector tubes. I beefed up the welds on the tubes, and it just looks so much better than the other ones that I had. They just weren't as beefy. So yeah, they needed to be beefed up to be more accurate. I'm really happy with it, guys. It's very tedious printing a lot of these models out and trying to get them right. I've had failed resin prints that I've had to go back and recalibrate to get to print right. That's just a part of the game. That's the way that it goes. But so far, we're pretty much 100% on everything we need to print out, at least resin printed models. I also printed this bellow out. This bellow comes with Julio de Alonso's parts models. I'll link that also below. And it's just an awesome bellow. I did 3D model the screw on top. It just pops out. I haven't glued it on yet. Super simple, nothing fancy. Was just trying to replicate the screw from the Ghostbusters 2 model. And since I'm trying to keep it as 3D printed as possible, I decided to just opt for a 3D model of it. Just goes in there like so. And voila. Instead of FDM printing my booster tube plug, I opted to resin print it because it just picks the welds up better. And the detail is much more high definition than an FDM print, which kind of blurs it just slightly. This would have worked just fine, but once you add in your filler primers, it kind of washes out the welds, whereas the resin print doesn't really need any filler primer or sanding, and it's going to bring those welds out perfectly like they were real aluminum. So we got all of our resin resistors printed out. They were just sitting here finishing curing. Most of this is already cured already. It's been here for a few days now. But I just want to show you guys the crazy detail on these resin prints. It's ridiculous. Guys, back in 2006 on the GB Fans forums, when we would purchase resin castings of the real parts from people, they weren't even this good. They would have air bubbles in them. They would be warped. These are perfect. Now, these aren't direct castings from an actual model. These are 3D modeled by somebody, but honestly, the models are exact to its real counterpart. So how dare I, guys, not talk about the thrower or the wand that I'm using for my Proton Pack model. This model is not anything that I modeled. I purchased this off Etsy from a user named Proton Pack Design. His name is, correct me if I'm pronouncing it wrong, is Julio de Alonso. And he did an absolute incredible, amazing, I can't even articulate the words that he did on this model. It is pretty much dimensionally 1:1 to the screen used Proton Pack throwers. He was able to capture the weld detail that was seen on the original throwers, and I was just going to kind of do a walkthrough and show you guys just how good and practical this model is. I was going to 3D model my own thrower, but once I found this, I realized that I would just be wasting my efforts because I don't think I would have been able to get it as nice and as good as this. So this is the thrower that we will be using. I was just going to go through and show you guys how good it is. I will link this below in case you want a really good thrower for your Proton Pack build. So let's just talk about how awesome this 3D model is, kind of the things that I did, and how it assembles. You will need some screws to assemble this. I have not done the screws yet, and you could also use glue in addition to the screws, but he really designed it very practical where everything just kind of pieces together like a kit. The box prints like so. It prints with the heatsink on, and it has these welds that are already modeled in that just look incredible. I don't know if you can see them there. I know there's a lot of print lines we need to clean up. These side knobs are separate. They have these little nubs here that you'll just glue these on. Same thing here with the gun knobs. Both of these also are not modeled in. They just kind of go on like so with those little nubs that you print out. And I used a really nice metallic silk filament for the knobs, and honestly, I don't know if the camera picks it up well. They look like real metal, so I'm just going to use those as is. And even the detail that he captured on the heat sink with the two ridges there. I mean, it's perfect. It looks awesome. These welds here also, look how nice those are. Beautiful. This box is going to clean up real well. I 3D printed these hat lights. These were done in multicolor on the Bamboo P1S. And guys, I wish back in 2006 3D printers existed. I mean, you couldn't even get resin castings that were this nice and looked like the real part. Yeah, this looks like the real deal for a 3D print. And it just goes on like so. Look at that. That is awesome. This also comes with the gun, so all these parts come with this gun. There's nothing I've added from other models except my bar graph. That would be the only thing that I added on. It pretty much just fits perfectly on his 3D model. A little bit of epoxy, and it's going to look perfect. It has that glass effect like the real bar graph. So I'm excited for that. With the hat light, same thing up top here. It just pops in on the bottom. This hat light comes with the model as well, with all the various parts. I don't know if I'm a fan of the hat light models. I think I might use some real arc electric lights, but the instrument bar just goes on like so. I also printed these in like a gold, these clippered barbs here. This rear cylinder, same thing, it just pops on there. You can glue that on. This trigger box just pops on, has the nice welds. One of my favorite things is the rear tube. And look how good his grips are. Those are like screen accurate grips. They look awesome. But here's the rear instrument tube and the grip. It has this slot. It just pops on like so. Look at that awesome weld right there on the rear tube. And it goes on. Bam. Now we have our front tube. Same thing with the grip. Same thing with the orange hat light. I printed it multicolor on my Bamboo P1S. This banjo was printed multicolor as well. I don't know if I'm that big of a fan of it. I might leave it, but I don't know. I might buy some good replicas too. I haven't made my mind up on this. You guys have to let me know what you think. Pop twist goes on. The inside of the box is really nice. You have to buy these 632 inserts that will go in there. You just kind of heat press them in. I haven't bought any yet. And then you have your gun track, and it literally just pops right in there. I can't brag enough about how good this model is. I 3D printed the clear acrylic tube that comes with the gun. Nothing wrong with the model. The model is perfect. I'm just not a fan of the clear filament. It's too frosty for me. So I think I'm also going to buy a real clear tube off of GB Fans. The model does come with an extending tube mechanism that I haven't figured out yet, but I printed a lot of the pieces. This is one of a few other pieces that I don't have here right now. And I'm sure it's pretty simple. I'll figure it out, but it does have a pop tube mech that comes with the model as well. And you can pop that clear tube out just like in the movies. Also wanted to show the trigger tip model that comes with the gun, just how nice it is. And with the filament that I use, it just looks like real metal. So just wanted to introduce the thrower to you guys, what I'm using. An incredible, incredible model. Can't say it enough. Thank you, Julio De Alonso, for making such an awesome thrower. I'm excited to use it on my Proton pack, and it's going to be a perfect addition for our 3D printed build. I appreciate you guys watching the video. I hope you liked it. I hope you liked his gun. And we're going to continue on with this build. We have a lot of work to do. And I appreciate you guys watching. We're on to the next one. Thank you.